This is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to.
My name is Abigail Ward.
And I'm Michelle St. Clair.
And this week we watched Highlander 3, The Final Dimension. Deceived that he had won the prize, Connor MacLeod awakens from a peaceful life when an entombed immortal magician comes seeking the Highlander. Let's watch.
One thing I really wanted to mention is we got another, correction.
Okay.
In that Luke Anton, a good friend and longtime listener, mentioned that we really butchered the Easter days.
Okay, tell us.
So, Holy Thursday, we didn't even know that was a thing.
Is that when he went on the cross? No, because he is resurrected on Easter Day.
Holy Thursday was the Last Supper.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said, Luke. Can you just listen? Can you just actually just listen to us? That's what I said.
Good Friday was the crucifixion. Easter Saturday was nothing. And Sunday he rose from the dead. Monday's just a public holiday.
Sunday he did rise from the dead.
Yeah, you were right.
I knew it.
Rose on the third day. Good Friday counts as the first day.
Right.
Yeah, so we were really off.
The thing is, Luke, thank you so much for that schooling. I did go to Bible school for 10 years, longer. But
What?
it didn't work. It didn't help.
It didn't take.
It just didn't gel with me. But, the thing to remember is that we could have looked this up. But we chose not to because we're humble. We're just two women.
Yeah,
we don't know
sometimes
everything.
I'm going to look up information that I don't know, and then I go, no, I'm too humble for this.
I'm too modest.
Too modest.
I won't absorb this information. I'll let others teach me. And I think that's the real beauty in having a platform like this, We're letting other people educate us.
This is not an informational podcast. This is please listen to these two idiots go on a journey into self-hatred.
No, thank you so much, Luke. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
How are you, Michelle?
I'm really good.
Yeah?
Genuinely. I had this moment yesterday where I was just I had just driven to the post office to do an errand, and then I was driving back to work. And just had this moment of sitting there and being man, I can't believe I get to do this, just in the sense of being I sometimes I just get overwhelmed by the fact that I'm here. I'm able to be a woman and drive around and fucking go and do errands like a normal person, and I get to go to the grocery store and I don't have to choose between food and rent. I can just exist as a person, and that was something that didn't feel possible at all for a really, really long time. And sometimes that makes me really emotional, just being you know what, there's still a lot of parts of my life that I would do differently or would want different, but that it's just the fact that I'm still here is really incredible. Yeah. So I just had I had a real moment of appreciating that. And then today's just been a good day.
That's so nice.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, it was good. It's all right.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I've had a really hectic couple of weeks, and I know I have a hectic 2 more weeks to come, I reckon. But then I'll be good.
Yeah.
I just want life to slow the fuck down. I don't like how we're in April. That's not fair.
Yeah.
I'm suing somebody. If anyone wants to take responsibility for the lapsing of time, the fleeting of each moment, rushing by my ears, let me know. I will take you to task.
Sue Big Daddy time.
Big Daddy time.
Daddy.
Big time is fucking me up the ass.
You've been served, Big Daddy. I know that's an American thing, but still. Oh, Big Daddy.
Yeah, I'm getting subpoenaed by time every day. Every day time comes knocking on my door being found you, motherfucker, and they thrust a file into my hands, and I'm ah!
Big Daddy time is suing you then.
Yeah, look, my understanding of subpoenas and how they are given is completely based on the opening sequence of Pineapple Express.
Yeah,
that's it for me. That's my understanding of the law.
Bad you have to do to get a full piano instead of just a sub piano.
100%. The prime pina.
Prime painter.
Yeah, which is also what I say when I take off my clothes. If I had a dick. Moment of silence for the dick Abby could have had. But you're right. There's sub pina,
yeah,
mid pina, and prime pina. You get a prime pena when like you just like straight up like commit genocide. That's a prime pena.
Jesus.
For sure.
This conversation went from 3 to 10 really quickly.
When penas get involved, the hyenas come out to play. You've never heard that idiom?
No, keep going.
Oh, this is my slam
Nobody
poem.
stop her.
Penas, hyenas, play, kids, the streets of Sydney, me, 30, big tits, big ass,
Yeah.
no pena, except a sub, eat fresh, snaps.
Oh, I can't snap. So this is me trying.
Next up, we have Michelle Sinclair.
Oh, where are we going? Where are we going? Where do we go now? Where do we go?
True.
Sweet child o' mine.
That was Michelle Sinclair.
I can't snap.
I went to one slam poetry event many years ago.
In Bankstown, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
with you. Not good. No.
Well, I thought it was all right. I was just like, yeah, I get why people like this.
And yet we never returned.
Well, we didn't live in Bankstown. We went to support one friend.
Even if we lived in Bankstown, I wouldn't have returned. It's the snapping for me.
Yeah, again, I can't do it.
That's why that's your issue.
What I hate is when I say to someone, yeah, I can't snap. And then almost every single person I've ever revealed that to then goes, oh, see, what you have to do is you get your middle finger against your thumb and then you push hard. I'm like, I get the fucking mechanics. I'm 26. It's not that no one's explained it to me.
Oh, okay. Well, Michelle, this is what you do. Like when you have to snap, you just get your big finger. Some call it a thumb.
Yeah.
I call it big finger. Then you get the middle finger in your hand and you really just wrap them.
Yeah. And then someone will be like, it's actually because your finger hits the thing. I'm like, no, I get it. I don't know. I just think it's interesting that everyone's first reaction is like, oh, no, I'll explain it. I'm like, I didn't say I don't know how to snap. I said I can't snap.
You don't have the spirit of the snap. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You need gusto and gumption.
I think it's that my thumb muscles are so underdeveloped that I've just don't have the angle required to create a surface to snap on. That's my theory.
Yeah, it really makes you question the quality of that thumb meat right at the bottom. You know how when you look at your hand, you got your thumb and then it leads into that bit of thumb meat on the side?
Yeah. When I look at my thumb, I'm like, there's the thumb, there's the meat.
You ever had your palm read? I'm like, the way the line's curved around your thumb meat here. It's really interesting.
Oh, this meat curve is really, really good.
The thumb meat, I think, is the sexiest part of the hand. How strong is your thumb meat?
Actually, you know what? I said that mine is probably underdeveloped, but at the same time, I've been playing analog stick console controller games since I was like 4 years old.
You got a strong thumb.
I probably have a really strong thumb.
Yeah, I bet you like wore the fucking grooves off of your PlayStation controllers.
I've done that with multiple controllers.
Jesus Christ, that's amazing.
It's just all the things where it's just like, oh, quickly toggle it back and forth, and you're like, you know those ones.
Oh, 100%.
Christ.
What? I do.
Okay, great.
I just don't have any gusto for it.
Yeah.
No gumption, which I brought up earlier, if you'd remember. Speaking of earlier, we watched Highlander 3.
Yeah. Well,
and it was a time.
Specifically, we watched Highlander 1 and then 3.
We skipped 2 because 2 is notably not part of the canon universe.
Yeah.
And yet we will have to return to it in a couple of weeks' time.
It feels like this is less Highlander 3 so much as it is Highlander 2, but let's try it again.
Yeah, it's them all pretending Highlander 2 didn't exist at all. This was... I really liked Highlander 1. We watched Highlander 1 for the first time with this because we'd never seen any of them. We wanted to understand this world and like what we were going into. We enjoyed Highlander 1 for what it is, which is like cheesy cult classic film.
It feels disingenuous though to just say I like it because there's so much more nuance to it than that. Like if someone was like, what do you think of Highlander? I couldn't just say I do or do not like it, because it was so bad and such a blitz into your brain of the absolute insanity. We kept joking that like Highlander 1 refuses to let you know what's going on. Like it just doesn't give you any information, and as it continues, it's kind of like, surely you get it by now, right? And I'm like, no, not at all. But by the midpoint, especially as soon as Sean Connery's character is introduced, you really kind of start to get on its side.
And Clancy Brown is such a fantastic villain for the first one. Like, he's so, like, in it. He's like, him and Sean Connery are giving it 120% the whole time.
And you kind of really get into it by that midpoint. You're
and
like,
there's
all
that
right,
whole,
I'm
like,
here.
the montage sequence of, like, him
my
fighting
God.
with Sean Connery on different hillsides in the Highlands. And then also the really beautiful montage sequence of his wife dying.
Yeah.
Like, he sticks by Heather. She becomes an old woman. That Queen song, "Learn You Forever."
Can you feel it, MacLeod? It's the quickening.
Forever.
I can feel it.
So much like magical shit is going on in that film.
Yeah.
It's like the bits that are actually set in America, I couldn't give two shits about. I want all that Highland beauty, all that Highland mysticism.
To clarify, it cuts between, with no regard to understanding, modern day New York and 1500s Scottish Highlands.
Yeah.
Whether or not, it never really tells you that, apart from one guy saying that it's like 1504 in Scotland.
1536 is the year he is driven from his town.
Yeah. But other than that, it doesn't really explain any of that to you. Also, it's the same guy present in both timelines, and it takes you about 60 minutes in for them to say, like, he is immortal.
Yeah.
Because before that point, you're like, what? What the fuck? Is
But
that
like,
the same guy?
as I said, I was like, yeah, we know this is dumb, but we're still like in it for the intrigue and mystery.
Yeah.
We're enjoying it for that.
Yeah.
So it did something right.
I would argue Cloud Atlas did the same thing, where the first 20 minutes was really fucking overwhelming. And then the rest of it, I was like, this is one of the most beautiful and moving movies I've ever seen.
Still haven't seen that.
Highlander, Cloud Atlas, similar in a lot of ways.
Well, like the general plot of Highlander 1, for any listeners that haven't seen it, is that Connor MacLeod, he is an immortal. He can't be killed. And you're going between his origin story in like 1500s Scotland and him in modern day America. Basically because in modern day America, the Gathering is occurring. And the Gathering is the final fight where all the immortals will actually like kill each other.
Yeah.
So the Gathering is occurring and it's because of Kurgan, the immortal that keeps trying to kill Connor.
Yeah.
So you're going through these that's like the general gist of it. And at the end, he doesn't kill Connor. Connor kills him. Connor's like, there can only be one because that's the
Kurgan
tagline.
says it to him like 3 times.
That's the running tagline of the whole franchise.
There can only be one.
There can only be one.
Yeah.
And he kills Kurgan and he gets all of his power. He ends up with this reporter that was trying to not reporter, she worked for the police.
Yeah.
He ends up with this chick and they go to Scotland together and they fall in love and it's a happy ending. That's the first one. Let me give you a little overview of what happened in this one.
Well, also just quickly, I wanted to say, specifically Kurgan absorbs their power when he kills an immortal, but also he said there can be only one, and I kept saying there can only be one, and one of those is a lot better of a line than the other.
Some general information about this film, and again, we're going to skip the events of the second film because they're not canon, and we have to do it later anyway. It is on the list. This film got 4.5 stars on IMDb. It was made in 1994, 8 years after the first one. So I believe the second one was 1991, 5 years after the first one.
Okay.
This one was directed by Andrew Morahan. Andrew Morahan did not direct the first Highlander. Nor did he direct the second one. He is a music video director, which you can totally see, but it's no surprise because the first and second Highlanders were directed by a guy that is also a music video director. He is the guy that did the first one. He actually did a couple of really interesting things and actually did other movies apart from this. But he is an Australian music video director.
Really, the blueprint for Spike Jonze and David Fincher of music video directors turned into features. They both watched Highlander and was like, I can do it.
Yeah,
it's
but
my
way
turn.
better.
What?
What? The guy that did the first one, I'm sorry, I can't actually remember his name and I can't be fucked to look it up. But the guy that directed the first film, he didn't write it. He did all the music videos for like Wham and Bananarama and Duran Duran, like all the really 80s music videos.
Yeah.
And you joked that there's a sex scene in this film that looks like a Bonnie Tyler music video. The director of this film, Andrew Morahan, directed a Bonnie Tyler music video.
Nailed it.
Not Total Eclipse of the Heart, but a very similar one.
But still, I'm
the same
really... Look, to pump myself up for a moment, I'm really impressed that I got such specific stylization so correct.
100%. You know what? That was a total eclipse of the brain, you know? This chick is off the hook. She nuts. She's poggers, man. And that's just cap. I can't deal with your crackhead energy. Sorry, I'm just slipping into Gen Z lingo here.
Oh my God. What?
We need the viewers. We need the listeners.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
When did the teenagers get here?
Oh, man.
You youthful woman.
You absolute waifu MILF. You fucking poggers bitch.
Really
Sorry, now
veering
I'm getting
off
just really
course.
aggressive. Here's the overview. And by the way, it was also written by Gregory Wyden. And Gregory Wyden wrote the original Highlander.
Okay.
So he did the screenplay for this and the second one. He's been there the whole way. And I actually want to talk to you about him after. Because
Yeah, sure.
the way that the first Highlander came about, the whole franchise came about, is really interesting.
Yeah, and the way that this movie went, I'm sure he only has one idea.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Overview. After the events of the first Highlander, Brenda is killed in a car accident. Now in 1994, Connor lives in Marrakesh with his adopted son, John. Meanwhile, a young archaeologist, Dr. Alexandra Johnson, excavates a legendary cave and sets loose an evil immortal named Cain, who has been trapped for over 4 centuries with his henchmen. Cain is now on the hunt for Connor. Connor returns to New York, sensing the quickening. Cain and Connor quickly fight, but Connor's blade is smashed apart by Cain, who flees. Connor returns to the Highlands, pursued by Dr. Alex, who has discovered his true identity. Connor reveals he and Alex's ancestor, Sarah, had a passionate romance during the French Revolution. They kiss. They French. Connor rushes home when his son John is abducted by Cain. They fight it out in an abandoned power plant, and the Highlander decapitates Cain. He returns to Scotland to live with Alex and John.
Nice.
That was the film.
Yeah.
And it was bananas. I had to leave out a lot of information because
Yeah.
I couldn't fit chaos into like 4 paragraphs, but that's the film.
If any listeners are wondering what the plot of Highlander 1 was, it's pretty much that, but the names are different.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It was the exact same plot as the first one. They even did like the same little car chase scene.
Yeah. Yeah. So many of the scenes, especially in the second half, I said to you, oh, this is that scene from the first one.
Yeah.
Like just them redoing it. But
With different characters.
Yeah.
It was just a copy of the first one, almost like makeup for what happened in the first one. Actually, I found this information. Someone had said that they expected that Highlander 3 would be called Highlander 3 The Apology because of how butchered everything got by the second one.
This whole movie though is still so batshit. Like every element is weird. It is obsessed with Japanese iconography.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert, who plays Connor MacLeod, we said sounds very German.
I've got plenty of information about Christopher Lambert for you.
Great, because it was always really funny hearing, I'm from the Scottish Highlands.
I am from the Highlands. And then when we go back into 1563, genuinely has a Scottish Highlands voice. I think they're trying to say like, yeah, for what he could do. But like, I think they were trying to basically make out like after all these years, he's lost his accent. Now he's a man of the world.
But it's not true of any of the other immortals.
No. And I also think that like you don't just have an international accent if you travel long enough. One does stick with you after a couple of years and you start talking in that. Because he's American. He'd probably just have an American voice.
You know, I'm just from America. I'm walking here in New York. That was what it sounded like.
Wait, I'm going to tell you first. I'm going to tell you about just the history of Highlander, and then we're really going to delve into what the fuck's going on with Christopher Lambert, okay? That's my promise to you. So Highlander was created by Gregory Wyden. This kind of fucks me up because I'm an aspiring screenwriter. And what happened to this man is what everybody dreams of, except he made genuinely terrible films.
Okay.
The first Highlander maybe is an exception, but again, that's a really heavy maybe.
Exception is generous, and I also agree.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it. I simultaneously think it's the best and worst thing I've ever seen.
It's shit, and it's I want to watch it again and again.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed myself. It's like the Raw One effect.
Because it's, like, I have to say it is objectively bad as a movie, because it's something else. It's a different art form. And it's that really, really good.
Yeah, yeah. So Gregory Wyden went to UCLA.
Okay.
And he wrote a script for his project, his assessment, and it was Highlander.
Oh my
And at that
God.
point, it was a very different Highlander.
Yeah.
And it went through a lot of different versions, but he wrote Highlander, and his instructor said, hey, you should pitch this to, like, any production studio that will take you. And he sold the script for $200,000, and it was made shortly after.
Yeah.
So this guy had the dream experience of like writing a very subpar movie. But someone just went, yeah, man, I get the vision. Scotland, man. Fucking Sean Connery in a Spanish outfit with a little hat.
Is Scottish. He dies, but then he's immortal. You know, we don't explain anything. And then it's in New York and this guy tries to kill him. I totally get it.
You get $200,000 straight up. I could pump that fucking baby out in no time. I'm annoyed.
It also tells you, though, the 80s were different.
They were so different.
That can't happen now.
They were in the middle of the whole like Hollywood blockbuster phase where they really wanted these big action epics, exactly like what this is. So I get it, but it doesn't mean that I, as a screenwriter and a woman, am not annoyed, because I am annoyed. I want that $200,000. So this is actually a PSA to Gregory Wyden.
Give it to me.
Give me your fucking money.
Give me $200,000.
I'm trying really hard. All right? So just give it.
Well, do you have a finished script?
For this semester? No.
Just in general?
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I've got 2.
Which 2?
I've got my Bushranger film.
No, finished. Not first draft. Finished.
Bushranger film was not a first draft. How dare you? That was like on its 5th draft.
Okay, I just meant the idea that he at least allegedly sold a finished script.
I did a finished script at the end of last semester. It's changed. In the meantime, it has changed. It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, what you did is you changed it so that the lead character, instead of being a young woman in the 90s, is actually from the Scottish Highlands.
And her name is Candice McTrott.
McTrott?
McTrott.
McTrott was your MacLeod alternative. McTrott.
Candice McTrott, and she keeps getting younger. She's Benjamin Buttoning.
Can you feel it, McTrott?
Who's like the female equivalent of Sean Connery now? Who's got suave and swagger as a lady?
I don't know. This is not accurate, but Joan Cusack.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you can feel it. You can feel it, McTrott.
But she's in her School of Rock outfit.
Yeah.
Which is a principal's costume. We don't need to explain it. They didn't fucking explain his outfit. So.
Yeah. Well, he was Spanish, but also not Spanish.
We'll have to also touch on Sean Connery. Let's get back to Gregory Wyden.
There's so much to unpack with this movie.
I know. Well, really, to be honest, all I have to say about Gregory Wyden is that he had like the dream experience where he wrote a very subpar script. Someone really loved the idea of it. And he got it sold instantly. And he got to oversee the script changing in production. He got to write the 2nd and the 3rd one. I don't know anything about Highlander beyond the 3rd film because I'm afraid.
I know there was a 6-season TV show.
Yeah, there was a lot. But that's Gregory Wyden. So that's how Highlander came about. And I will say that, like, just as an overview for you, obviously you know this, but like Highlander is very loved. When the first Highlander came out, it didn't have a huge critical acclaim or like reception even.
No.
I know. But years later, people were like, fuck, this film was something else.
Yeah.
Apparently on set while it was being created, the set environments were just like really positive and happy. Everyone was really excited for the film.
Really?
The cast had a great time. There was heaps of extras on set in Scotland that were getting like fucking tanked and getting paid £10 an hour. But the mood and the vibe were really good, so much so that a lot of people would work overtime for free.
They heard Christopher Lambert deliver the lines in that way, and they were like, this is really good.
Well, this is also something I want to touch on with the first Highlander as a segue into Christopher Lambert.
Yeah.
The first Highlander, they looked far and wide for their lead. And they found Christopher Lambert, and they were like, this guy's excellent. We want him.
Mm-hmm.
They signed a contract with him. It was done. And then they found out that he spoke next to no English at all.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
I fucking nailed it.
Last night, I was looking up some brief information, and I said to you that I noticed that Christopher Lambert was born in New York, so I was very confused.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert was born in New York and then very quickly moved to and was raised and educated in Geneva.
Okay, there we go.
And then moved to Paris in his teens. He is a American-born French actor.
That makes
So I think they saw that he was born in New York, assumed it would be fine.
Yeah.
They signed the contract and they went, holy shit, this guy can't speak any English.
Because when you said he's born in New York, all I could just imagine is him being like, yes, I am a native-born New Yorker. Here we go.
Again, it's another case of Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah.
He was born in New Orleans.
Yeah, that makes way more sense about Christopher. I'm like, he has to be fucking European.
Yeah, so he's a Frenchman. And he's quite critically acclaimed as a French actor.
Really?
This was the first... Well, they love him. They just adore him.
Okay.
But they were really shocked and worried when they found out that he couldn't speak any English. So for the first 4 days of every day on shoot for the first one, there was a coach trying to teach him how to speak English.
Oh my God.
And also how to sound not French, but generally European.
Okay.
So that was the thing.
Well, that makes sense as to why his accent was amorphous Europe.
Yeah.
More than anything.
I also found out that Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery got along exceedingly well on set.
That doesn't surprise me.
They became incredible
at all.
friends. They loved their scenes together. Sean Connery was there for all of 1 week, and they bonded an incredible amount. And that's why for the second one, Sean Connery was like, I don't think I should come back. And like Christopher Lambert was like, you'll have to. And then he did, and it was shocking.
You have to join us in my hometown of New York. But that makes sense because, I mean, Sean Connery is one of the strangest men, and Christopher Lambert also strikes me as an incredibly strange man.
Sean Connery is a really bizarre man. I mean, like, he's like very...
He's Scottish Marlon Brando. Let's just be honest with ourselves.
He is, 100%. And he's also got, like, that playboy attitude of Marlon Brando. Like, he was such a womanizer in his time. Everything that you read about Sean Connery is how he was extremely, like, egotistical but very charismatic and kind at the same time. There's lots of good stories about him, but also the women in his life would beg to differ. He was married to Diane... I don't know how to say her surname. Is it Cilento?
I don't know.
She's an Australian actress.
Oh, cool.
And she was his first wife, and she said after 9 years together that he'd like been physically and emotionally abusive the whole time.
Yikes.
So yeah, that's a whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was a very famous womanizer, had multiple affairs. Not great, but to men, what a guy.
Oh my God.
So that's something, isn't
Yeah,
it?
nailed it. We're not even really talking about Highlander 3.
Yeah.
Like, that's how
We're gonna
crazy
go into
Highlander is.
I just want to really briefly cap off that, Christopher Lambert had to go through a lot of like dialect and a lot of dialect coaching. And when he came to Highlander 3, he was much better at speaking English.
Debatable.
But also something else interesting. I want to talk about like just the other cast in this film.
Sure.
The main bad guy in this film was Mario Van Peebles.
Oh! Okay, I've heard of Mario Van Peebles. I think. Maybe I'm misremembering.
His dad is Melvin Van Peebles, and Melvin Van Peebles did a lot of like blaxploitation films in the 70s. And Mario made a film about his dad making blaxploitation films, and he also did New Jack City. Mario Van Peebles directed New Jack City.
I've never heard of New Jack City.
Oh, it was like this like 90s.
I guess Jack once had a city, and
then it was
about the new one.
At one point it was old, but now this is a different one. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But he plays the main bad guy, Kane.
Yeah.
And he's actually very fun to watch. I'm not going to lie.
Look,
I really liked watching him.
Here's the thing. If Kane as a villain was more distinctly different from the Kurgan, I probably would agree. But he's almost identical, but has magic. And I mean, Mario Van Peebles is no Clancy Brown.
No one's a Clancy Brown.
Right. And that means that it doesn't matter how distinct and kind of fun Mario Van Peebles
You
is.
mourned Clancy Brown.
Yeah, I was just like, what we really need is a Clancy Brown.
Fair enough.
I wish they leaned into him being a sorcerer more.
Well, apparently Christopher Lambert specifically wanted Mario Van Peebles because they had worked together earlier, and he went, I love this guy. It turns out Christopher Lambert probably just gets on with everyone, but he was like, I loved Mario Van Peebles. You got to get him for the bad guy. I demand it, and they did. Mario was like, I love Christopher. Let's do it. Let's go.
I just wish that, because the whole movie, because Kane has sort of relatively generic East Asian armor. Maybe it is specifically Japanese, I think. It's sort of samurai-esque.
Yeah.
And he does like wield a sword around. He's almost like I don't know a specific term, but he's almost just like a roaming warrior with a band of people following him.
Yeah.
But his whole shtick is that he's meant to be a sorcerer with magic. And I feel like we only see him cast magic in the back half of the movie. If he was more of a sorcerer, more of this like crazy, weird, wicked sorcerer who also could wield a sword, rather than a warrior who also knew magic, I probably would have liked it more.
Fair.
Because I feel that's one of the things that made it feel just so much like you're just doing the first movie, but without the heart.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
didn't need to exist as a film.
No.
At all. It did nothing new.
It is the template of the perfunctory sequel, where it is just like, what if we did the same thing, but again?
I think, like, my problem was also, like, it looked worse than the first one.
It did. It looked a lot worse.
The first one actually looked crisp. It didn't always look like a film, but most of the time it looked like a film. This one looked always like a music video.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
The sets never looked realistic. The color grading was really odd. The quality of the footage was really low.
Yeah.
It always looked grainy and off focus.
Really quite bad.
Just actually shocking. Like, shockingly made.
Just badly produced.
Yeah.
Badly directed.
But I liked Mario Van Peebles. And also, what I love about these films as well, what I want to touch on, is that all of the leads, all of the women in his life are blonde.
Yeah. That makes
Heather
sense.
was blonde in the first one. The main character, like the main love interest, Brenda, was blonde.
Yeah.
This chick, blonde. But she was redhead. Her ancestor was a redhead French Revolution. Oh, so we need to talk about the French Revolution plot, by the way. Really quickly.
Yeah. Which was...
Because his love interest in this is Dr. Alex, and he says to her, like, hey, I kind of fucked your great-great-great-grandmother during the French Revolution. We had a thing. I really loved her. She thought I got guillotined. I didn't. I was fine.
Yeah.
But I knew she got married and moved on, so I let it be. And she's like, okay.
Yeah.
Sick. That's normal.
Doesn't add on to anything.
No.
When it begins, you think that it's definitely presented as if the revelation is that she is actually that person and she's another immortal.
She's just an ancestor.
She's just a descendant.
But what I love is that in the flashback scenes to the revolution, him and Sarah are fucking in a barn. They're getting nasty. And then a dude's like, oh, Connor, you've got to go. And he's like, what's up? And they're like, it's the revolution. We need you. And she's like, you're not coming back, are you? And you and me were like, where is he going? What do they need from him?
The revolution in general. They need him.
And then it cuts to forwards where he's like captured.
Clearly failed.
In a prison and is about to be guillotined. It's things didn't go to plan for poor old Connor MacLeod.
But also, to be fair, also to his defense though, like, it is the French Revolution. When she's like, you're not coming back, it's like, well, this is a major historical event.
How would you know at the time? You just don't.
Well, you would know at the time because you're like, the people are overthrowing the monarchy, which there was no other republics. That's huge.
True.
That's
but it'd
massive.
be odd if my friend was like, dude, Parliament's getting overthrown in Canberra. We need you. And I'd be like, me?
Okay, but you're
me?
not an immortal warrior.
What can he do in the revolution? Just fight?
Fight, I assume. I also I really, really like to think, even though we never see it, that he's read a book. I think the first one actually implies that he's read a book.
Yeah?
It does, specifically because he looks at the back of a book and recognizes the love interest. So there's the implication that he's read a book at least recently.
I mean, this guy can live forever. If I could live forever, I would try and read every book possible.
Yeah.
You'd have the time.
That's what I'm saying.
That'd be incredible.
I would hope he read a book.
I mourn every day that I cannot read every book.
Maybe one of the subplots we never got to see is he's actually quite the statesman.
He's actually like quite studious as well. And he's always educating himself. He's always enrolling in courses.
One of the main things in the first one that isn't there as much is like he's an antiquities dealer. And all I could think was, okay, you're from the Scottish Highlands, right? So obviously a lot of the antiquities are stuff that he's picked up at the time, not just stuff that he's bought. At what point do you start selling it? You know, do you wait for, because obviously like in 1800, there's probably not as much of an antiquities market. You get to like 1915, you know, that's when people started getting really into history, I guess.
Just 1915.
Just specifically.
That year.
I know the early 1900s, they started to do more history stuff, so I don't know. Do you go, because he doesn't know the future. Is that when he goes, all right, I'm going to start selling my authentic Scottish artifacts?
He would have to bring a lot of stuff with him as well to make a reasonable amount of money. He'd have storage units everywhere.
Yeah.
Would he just like bury it and leave it somewhere remote and come back for it years later? And then remember that bit where he finds his tools that he buried many years before? That was Highlander 1. But he finds his tools that he buried many years before and he pulls them out of a rock and he holds them and he's like, yeah.
Doesn't he do that in this one though?
I thought it was the first one.
Because she has the rectangle, you know, the rectangle from the guy at the beginning.
Oh, so he goes there to forge.
Yeah. I thought that was in this one because
They
his
both
sword
blend
gets
into it.
broken
They're
by
the same
Cain.
movie, Michelle.
Yeah, that's true. And then there's a montage of him. It's like 8 shots in a row that are almost the exact same shot of him just lightly tapping a sword in the Scottish Highlands, and then
Yeah.
suddenly the woman is behind him going, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I've made another sword."
She really just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Dr. Alex is not a great character.
She literally emerges from behind a tree in one shot.
I thought
which
Brenda
couldn't
wasn't
get
a good
over.
character, but Brenda actually had a motivation to do with the plot. Alex
Yeah.
is just there and wants to fuck him.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's crazy. Before, like, one thing I 100% want to talk about, though, is the intro. Because the intro begins at not 11, it begins at 15.
And it's like Connor looking at the camera being like, I am an immortal.
Yeah. Staring down the barrel of the camera. Not a single shot lasts more than like 1.5 seconds. It's like so fast. And it's cutting between him in the present, sitting on like a throne, talking to the camera, to just like lightning, to him back in the 1500s, dressed as a Scotsman, talking to an old Japanese swordmaster / sorceress.
Played by Marco.
Played by Marco.
Marco. Is that how you say it? Marco?
I don't,
Marco is like the guy that voiced Uncle Iroh from Avatar.
Oh!
He was also, I just watched Conan the Barbarian for the first time. He was also Akiro, the like this like dude in a hut in Conan. He's like a really famous character actor.
I told you I recognized his voice. I just didn't realize it actually was him.
It's like he did a lot of voiceover work, a lot of work for like Western films in particular. He was almost like the go-to mystical Japanese man, which is kind of inherently racist.
The thing that said I recognized him, even though I've watched Avatar, but I mostly was like, oh, that's Aku from Samurai Jack.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah. His name is Mako, M-A-K-O. Mako.
Right.
And he's a very acclaimed actor.
Yeah, and so it suddenly cuts to him doing magic while forging a sword, and then Connor, the actual Scotsman, is there, and then cutting back between him still talking to the camera, and then cutting to a group of samurai in a village with Cain just like killing people left and right, and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, you and I started the film before watching Highlander 1. We got 20 minutes in, both of us, and went, I can't. I have to go back to the first one.
The first 5 minutes, which, by the way, that sequence ends with Cain cutting off the old swordmaster's head, and then the swordmaster on the ground, his head separated on the ground, is like, you will not succeed. Ah!
Yeah.
And then blue lightning is everywhere.
It's a lot. And also, by the way,
Holy
some of the
shit.
beheadings in all of these films are insane. Like, when he beheads Cain at the end of this film, he does the slash, and you see it from, like, 5 different angles. Because, again, no one in this film
Repeats
understands how to
over and
show
over.
something concisely or cleanly. You get it, like, 1,000,000 times. And then, literally, Cain turns around to look at him, and he turns his neck, which has been severed from his body. And then he kind of does this, like, head jerk, and it just slides off his body. It's so graphic. It's so wild.
Yeah, the first 5 minutes is like a whole movie by itself.
Yeah.
But compressed into 5 minutes. It's so insane.
Do you want a bit of trivia?
I would love a bit of trivia.
So I have already told you that. So this is a bit of trivia about Mario Van Peebles.
Okay.
So apparently while they were filming in Montreal, because they filmed a lot in Canada, there were 2 local punk rockers with mohawk hairdos that were hired as extras for a scene in which they attempt to rob the newly awakened Cain in a dark alley.
Okay.
The 2 were paid a nominal fee and thanked for their services before shooting. The scene was later cut after the extras were seen taking drugs on set, and they were overheard plotting to kidnap Mario Van Peebles by driving away in the makeup RV with him in it. That's just
the fuck.
You're like, hey kids off the street, let me get you in on this cool movie, and they're like, let's fucking get the main actor, and they're like,
the fuck.
That's insane. Director Andy Morahan has directed several music videos for the band Guns N' Roses. And wanted them to do a soundtrack for the film, similar to how Queen did the first one.
Yeah.
According to Morahan, they were excited about the idea, but it fell through when Axl Rose refused to do it if Mario Van Peebles remained in the film.
What?
The reason for Axl's dislike of Peebles has never been explained.
What?
Yeah.
What the... Well, look, Axl Rose is notably one of the most unreasonable men in rock, which is, I mean, it's rock and roll. We're really saying something there.
Here's something I found out about Ramirez, the character.
Uh-huh.
He's meant to be Egyptian.
What?
Yeah.
What?
He's in a Spanish outfit, played by a white man, a Scotsman, but he's meant to be Egyptian.
Because I was thinking, he said he's 2,000 years old
Yeah.
in 1500, so that means he was born in 500 BC. He can't be a Spaniard. There was no Spain.
Yeah.
And he still sounds Scottish, although there wasn't a Scotland then either.
Yeah.
If he's Egyptian, that would mean he's Greek Egyptian, right?
2,000 years old.
Because
And
that
that
would
was
have
in
been
the 1500s.
No, 500 BC would that have been too early for Ptolemaic Egypt? That's another point. Still weird. Still weird.
Still really weird. At a Q&A session with director Andy Morahan, the director was asked what he thought about the similarities with this film and the original. He said that he neither considers this a sequel to Highlander or a prequel to Highlander, but an equal to the first film.
Why would it be a prequel?
I
don't think he
don't
knows
know.
what the words mean.
I don't understand.
I don't think he knows what the words mean, though.
No.
Because, like, a prequel would be set before, and this is explicitly set 8 years after.
It's nonsense.
I've heard the term equal jokingly used for movies that are, like, set at the same time as, but from a different perspective. Which I think is a fun term. I like Borderlands as pre-sequel, where it's made after, but it's set before.
Yeah.
That's fun. But in this case, it's just a sequel. It's just a sequel.
It's just a sequel.
He's right, though, in that it's an equal, in that it is the same thing, but again.
It's bananas. Do you want some reviews?
Yeah.
So, this film holds a 5% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, that would be a 0.5 out of 10 on IMDb.
That's higher, actually, than some of the things we've watched recently.
Stephen Holden of the New York Times remarked, "How could an action-adventure film that cost $34 million,
What?
most of which clearly went into pyrotechnics, computerized special effects, and scene locations, end up looking cheap, silly, and lifeless? Highlander 3 is an incoherent mess and has performances that are one-dimensional even by the undemanding standards of the genre." By the way, speaking of dimensions, there was no final dimension.
No dimensions.
What does that mean?
0 dimensions.
That's just buzzwords. That's just filler.
I guess it's the final dimension in the sense that there are no more dimensions introduced in this movie. It's just that it's not a different dimension than the initial one, nor are there ever any mention
They're all on
of
the
additional
same
dimensions.
dimension. They are on the same dimension as us. They are going through time.
Yeah. It's the same set of dimensions in that it's 3D space and time. There's no dimensions. The other title, Highlander 3 Sorcerer, I'm like, well, okay, because it's Highlander, but with a sorcerer.
It makes sense.
Totally get it.
Yeah, I don't know
Totally
where
get
the
it.
final dimension came from.
Yeah.
This is a review left by Clark Collis of Empire magazine.
Okay.
Lame, but in a good way.
Fair. Empire would say that.
Yeah.
She said superiorly.
I have another review here from an IMDb user.
Okay.
It's a 10 out of 10 review.
Love it.
It's called Highlander 3 The Sorcerer.
Okay.
Very to the point.
Mm-hmm.
And it was left by Haggett 42.
Sometimes you just gotta hag it.
This movie is good. Christopher Lambert is one of my favorite actors. This movie is not my favorite out of the 4 movies. I liked the first and the fourth. But don't forget, this is one of 4, and I like to see them one after the other. If you like a sword fighting seance, this is a movie for you. Mario Van Peebles played in one of my favorite TV series, Rude Awakening, and I hope you like more than me this movie.
What?
10 out of 10.
Strangely negative. Strangely negative. But don't forget, they like to watch it in order. Like, please don't forget Haggett likes to watch them in order. I didn't even know there was a 4th one.
There's like 5, I think.
All we know, I guess, about the future movies is that there are no more dimensions.
This was it.
This was it.
This is a review left by Dr. X Maverick called Good. 10 out of 10.
It's pretty solid.
People rating so low and complaining don't understand the complexities of a multiverse storyline. I don't think this guy understands what a multiverse is, because there is no such thing as a
There's
multiverse
only
storyline.
one dimension.
Granted, it's confusing for the prize to be won if 3 other immortals still existed.
Yeah.
The same thing happened in Buffy too. 10 out of 10.
Okay, I mean, Brooke and I have been watching through Buffy, and to be honest, at a different point in the podcast, I want to talk about the incredible representation and affinity I feel with the character of Tara for a whole bunch of reasons.
I've heard a lot about Tara. She like the one that like people think she's like autistic or like she's been like written as an autistic character.
I mean, I would argue that Anya is.
Oh no, it was Anya.
Yeah,
it was Anya. Tess was saying that Anya. Tess from work. Shout out to Tess if you're listening. Tess was from work was saying that Anya was her favorite character because she was like basically like very.
She is autistic coded.
Yeah, autistic coded.
And more than anything, like she's autistic coded, but not in a way where like everyone treats her as special. Like everyone treats her as a person.
Yeah.
And she has both positive and negative traits. Like that's what makes it good in that sense. No, Tara is the eventual girlfriend of Willow.
Right. Why do you connect so much with Tara?
Because she's clearly very anxious.
She's like hot and sexy.
Because she's really hot and just sexy, and
she's
everyone's
really
like, "Wow,
talented.
you're incredible."
I don't know.
Because she's really anxious, and because she stutters in the same way that I used to stutter a lot more when I was a teenager, and part of her backstory is really easy to. Obviously, it's being like a metaphor for gay, but a lot of her backstory is really easy to feel like trans allegory. And it just meant that I feel like I'm being represented on screen in a way that wasn't possible for me to understand as a teenager, let alone actually see. And so it just makes me really emotional watching it. And I've really, really enjoyed watching through the first 5 seasons. And it's really matured as a show. It's gotten really, really, I don't know, like a lot of nuance out of it after that first season, which was kind of wishy-washy. Season 5 was, in particular, really, really incredible. One of the most moving episodes to do with her mother as well, which made me devastated because of my own mother. And, I mean, I haven't seen the last 2 seasons, but I have no fucking clue what this reviewer is talking about. Watching through Buffy with Brooke has actually been one of my favorite experiences. It's been really, really sweet, and it's been really nice to watch it through after the fact with Brooke. It's been horrible reading about all the stuff about Joss Whedon at the same time as her, but it's also been satisfying to get to celebrate the people involved who did a really good fucking job despite Joss Whedon rather than because of.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, how many stars would you give this film, Michelle?
Look, ultimately, like with Highlander 1, I said before, I think it's both the best and worst thing I've ever seen. Like, I wouldn't even be able to rate it, even though I really enjoyed it by the end of it. It feels just like a copy, but one that is worse. This movie is like when you copy a JPEG over and over and over again, and you just introduce
literally
more artifacting.
Visually, in terms of the quality, yes.
It's like when you find a meme from 7 years ago on Facebook that has been through the depths of hell. Yeah. That's what this movie is. And I don't know, like, there's parts of it that I'm like, I would watch this again, but I think it's so fucking bad.
I'd watch the first one again. I wouldn't watch this one again.
It was kind of slow in the middle in a way that the first one wasn't. And I don't think it felt like a movie, so I'm going to give it a 1.5.
Fair. I was going to say, your criteria is also always, did it feel like a movie? And no, it felt like a music video.
It didn't feel like a movie.
Fair enough.
In no way did it feel... It felt movie adjacent. It felt like someone had heard of a movie and tried to make one from that description.
I found last week Biodome was really tough for me. And this wasn't as tough. I actually had a good time with certain parts of it. I think it is fucking terrible and it doesn't always look like a movie, but in terms of personal enjoyment, I think you're a lot more you're very good at being objective, and I'm very bad at that. I'm very subjective with my ratings. I had an okay time with it, and I was able to tolerate it. Sex and the City 2 is my bar, and I didn't scream into a pillow. I had an okay time. I'm going to give it a... Because that's where we're at, by the way, is I had an okay time. Not, is it a good movie? It's could I suffer through it? By the way, that's where we've gotten to.
It's really telling that our baseline has shifted so low.
I would give it a solid.
Did I want to jump off the roof by the end of this movie? No. So, you know.
Was I physically disturbed by this movie? No. I'll give it a 2.7 out of 10.
Nice. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I mean, when we get to it, we can end up getting into negative ratings.
I reckon we should. We should.
Give ourselves that room.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, that was Highlander 3, The Final Dimension. You can find us on Twitter under Rating Descending.
Or you can find us personally. You can find me on Insta and Twitter under Michelle.St.
And me on Insta under Abigail J. Ward.
And don't forget to drop us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really makes a difference.
So what are we watching next week, Michelle?
Next week, we are watching Police Academy 6.
Yeah, I know you've been prepping. And
I've been
you've been
prepping.
watching some Police Academies in advance.
I'm watching all of them, and I'm halfway through, and let me tell you, I am not a fan.
No.
It's going to be a miserable watch.
Oh, Jesus. Catch us next week, you silly
You silly goose
Silly
boo-boos.
Bye.